We finally know why Khamzat Chimaev looked so different against DDP at UFC 319. His title-winning performance had fans scratching their heads, calling it cautious and boring, which is the last thing you'd ever expect from Boers, but the reason is out, and it all comes down to who was in his corner. Arman Tsarukyan, the #1 lightweight contender, was the man behind Chimaev's game plan. In a latest appearance with Russian reporter Adam Zuba, Arman unveiled everything. He instilled it into Khamzat: no brawling, no reckless exchanges, no fighting with emotion. The strategy was clear: wrestle, control, win rounds, and don't give DDP any openings. At one point before the 4th round, Khamzat even asked if he could start throwing hands, but Tsarukyan shut that down on the spot, telling him to stay disciplined and stick to the script. This wasn't about putting on a show. The mission was simple: secure the belt, and honestly, you can't really blame him for playing it safe in a championship fight, but let's be real, we don't want to see that Khamzat again. Hopefully next time we get the wild, relentless Chimaev that fans fell in love with. Here's what Arman had to say, quote, "He wanted to go for the knockout, for the finish, but that's where mistakes happen and you can lose the fight. The risk is too high. In the 3rd round, he asked me, 'Can I box now?' I told him no, Khamzat, everything is working. If you see the chance to take him down, do it and control him. No need to invent anything new. If you're winning all 3 rounds at this pace, why change?" The great thing is, Khamzat actually listened. I said this to him before the fight as well. If you want to become a champion, you need to be tactical and dominant. Don't fight with your emotions, because that's where DDP has his only chance. End quote. Arman's comments strongly hint at how he would approach a fight with the champion in his own division, Ilia Topuria, and it feels almost certain. What Khamzat did against DDP is very likely the same blueprint Arman will use if he gets his title shot. However, unlike DDP, El Matador has a very strong wrestling background, which makes the matchup even more intriguing. DC and Chael Sonnen are debating who really poses the toughest threat to Khamzat Chimaev's throne after UFC 319. The entire MMA world seems to be rallying behind Reinier de Ridder as the matchup they want most out of the stacked middleweight top 5. But Dana White just threw a wrench into things, officially announcing RDR versus Fluffy Hernandez for October. Since the champ has already made it clear he wants to fight at UFC Abu Dhabi in October, that rules both RDR and Fluffy out of the picture. Caio Borralho and Nasruddin Imavov are booked for early September, which technically keeps them in play for a quick turnaround if the UFC comes calling. Realistically though, fighters usually want more than a month to prepare for a championship fight. Still, when it comes to a UFC title shot, very few would ever say no. History has shown plenty of examples. Chael Sonnen back in 2012 stepped up to fight John Jones for the light heavyweight title on just 8 days notice after Dan Henderson pulled out. Jones turned it down and the entire UFC 151 card collapsed, but Sonnen eventually fought him later. Michael Bisping also proved how wild these short notice opportunities can be. He jumped in against Luke Rockhold on 17 days notice at UFC 199, just months after a brutal fight with Anderson Silva, and shocked the world by knocking Rockhold out to become champion. These cases show that while short notice title fights aren't ideal, sometimes they lead to the biggest moments in UFC history. Now let's dive into Chael's breakdown.
I love the idea of Caio getting that opportunity. I don't want to continue down my usual road of dismissing Imanov. When Imanov got over on Izzy, he got a brand new look from me. And I'm not dismissive to Fluffy Hernandez, by the way. But the one that could offer the biggest threat from what we've seen in the past, and that's going to be de Ridder. One thing that Chimaev, and one of the reasons his fight with Gilbert Burns was so fun and so unusual, is he respected Gilbert's ground game so much that he wasn't in a huge hurry to get him there, like he was, say, Saturday against Dricus. And I only offer you that de Ridder's ground game is respected in the same regard. He's a tremendous jiu-jitsu player, but specifically from the bottom. So I like RDR right now. However, I think that Caio and Imanov both have a little more skills than they have shown us, and I don't hate the idea of Sean Strickland either. Now, I know that's a little down the road, but there's a lot of middleweights, I think, is my larger point.
Spanish MMA journalist Alvaro Colmenero just lit the MMA world on fire again. And if you know anything about Ilia Topuria, you know Alvaro's the guy with the inside scoop. We're talking about the same dude who leaked every single one of Topuria's fights weeks before they were officially announced. He even broke the news about Ilia vacating the featherweight title and switching his nickname from El Matador to La Leyenda, then back again. Point is, this guy knows Ilia or his camp very well, and what he just dropped on on his Twitch livestream had fans buzzing. According to Alvaro, during a sparring session, Ilia took down Khamzat Chimaev.
Ilia Topuria, y es una realidad, hay pruebas.
Ilia Topuria, and this is a fact, I have proof, took down Khamzat Chimaev during sparring.
Derribó a Khamzat Chimaev haciendo sparring.
Yeah, you heard that right. That clip spread like wildfire. Big John McCarthy and Josh Thompson even dedicated a whole 30 minutes of their podcast just to talk about this. Now, some fans are hyping Ilia up like he just beat Khamzat in a main event. Others, not so much. Most people are saying, relax, it's just sparring, it doesn't really count. Even Big John weighed in, saying when a bigger guy spars a smaller guy, sometimes you let them get those moments in. You give them a chance to work. Maybe you let them take you down so they can sharpen their game. Still though, Ilia taking down Khamzat, whether it was real or gifted, it's got the MMA world talking. And Alvaro, once again, first on the scene.
You look and you go, them training together. Of course it makes sense. Iron sharpens iron or it breaks iron. It either sharpens or breaks depending upon who you're training with and how that training is going. Obviously, Chimaev is a bigger human being than Topuria. Okay, here's a guy that cuts down to 185 or was cutting all the way down to 170. He's bigger, and so but training is training. And again, all kinds of things happen in training, and you can train with a smaller fighter if you're the bigger guy, as long as you don't lose your mind. You've got to hold yourself back in certain areas. Don't put as much pressure as you can at certain times, because you got to say, hey, I've got to give space and I got to do things to let this person who's a little bit smaller than me, I got to give them a chance to work and do what we're flowing through or whatever. But it makes sense. It makes sense that they both, kind of congregated towards each other, their backgrounds, everything.
New training footage has surfaced, showing Alex Pereira putting in serious work on his wrestling ahead of the rematch with Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 320 this October. In recent weeks, Pereira has faced criticism after news broke that he's starring in a horror movie, with skeptics questioning his focus and commitment to the fight, echoing the doubts that surrounded their first encounter. Constant traveling, partying, and distractions led many fans to believe those factors contributed to his underwhelming performance last time. This time, Alex is promising he is fully locked in and determined to reclaim the belt. His wrestling sessions are reportedly more intense and disciplined than ever, signaling a shift in priorities. Sources close to his camp say he has eliminated unnecessary distractions and is treating this fight as the defining moment of his career. If Pereira can translate this work into the octagon, fans may witness a completely different performance from the man who struggled in their first matchup. That's it from MMA Psycho. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for daily MMA news.